Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 13 in 2022 and see how both these phones have been holding up. Now, the 13 is the more, newer one, so it's more interesting to see how this one's been holding up against the iPhone 10. They are both on iOS 16, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they both kind of compare. If you want to pick up, majority of the iPhones, I would recommend this year. Links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely tell both these phones have a very interesting layout. The iPhone 10 came out in 2017, 5 years ago, and this iPhone, design-wise, is still holding up very well. We had a 14.8, we had a 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display, not a 15.8-inch, a 5.8-inch OLED display, and it is a very good looking panel. This is still one of the probably the best panels Apple has made. This one is better. ProMotion display on the 13 Pro is better. You have the notch up top, which I'm totally fine with. The notches on the 13 are a little bit smaller, but I think the design of this iPhone still holds up very, very well. On the iPhone 13, we have a little bit of a bigger 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED panel. So it's a little bit of a bigger panel than something like the iPhone 10. So you are getting something like that. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you want a phone that's going to be giving you a better display, this is definitely the better one. You're also getting a notch up top too, which is really cool. Having a notch like that, I think is totally fine. I think the newer ones are going to be better without the notches, but that is probably one thing to keep in mind as well. So design-wise, the iPhone 10 still holds up very well, but the 13 is still there too. I mean, this 13 is still a really good phone. Now, side-wise, we are getting a little bit of a different layout. So the iPhone 13 has a flat side, which I think looks great. The iPhone 10, though, has this stainless steel aluminum side, whatever it is, and it looks better than the iPhone 13's. Even 5 years later, it's crazy how good of a phone the iPhone 10 looks over something like the iPhone 13. Now, the flat side, I think, still looks great. I think everything about this phone still looks beautiful as well. But for the iPhone 10 being 5 years old at this point, it is amazing to see how that phone is holding up. On the back, we have glass backs on both, dual camera setups on both as well, but it is important to keep in mind the 10 sensors are smaller than the iPhone 13's. The camera on the 13 is better. Then this is an ultra-wide sensor here versus the telephoto lens here. We have standard glass backs on both, wireless charging on both. We do have MagSafe capability on the iPhone 13, IP certification on both phones as well. And I will definitely be the first one to tell you, or I won't be the first one depending on how you look at it. The iPhone 10 is just crazy how this phone has been holding up. When I look at both these phones, I just think it's insane that the iPhone 13 is the latest one, but it really isn't even feeling that much newer than something like the iPhone 10. So when it comes down to that, that's kind of how it comes. I'm going to sum it up there. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is the one area where something like the iPhone 10 is probably going to not be as good as a phone as the iPhone 13. This phone came out in 2017. So because of that, it's not going to be lasting forever. This phone is probably on one of its last versions of software. If it's not iOS 16, then it's probably going to be iOS 17. Maybe it'll keep going, I have no idea. But with a phone like the iPhone 10, it still holds up in so many different ways, but it's not really holding up too well in terms of software. I got a very limited version of iOS 16, which I wasn't happy about. With the iPhone 13, on the other hand, this phone is going to be here for quite a bit of time. And if you get this phone today, I mean, it's going to be one of the longest lasting iPhones you can probably purchase. So I think when it comes down to that, that is another massive, massive thing to keep in mind as well. So now that that's out of the way, let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 13 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 10 has that Apple A11 Bionic chip inside of it with 3 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, there we go. Let's go and clear the apps in the background, and as you guys can see, they are all cleared out. So let's get into it. 13 is here, 10 is here, both on iOS 16. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of the same thing. Music 3, 2, 1. Okay, same panels on both as well, and the 13 was slightly faster there, which is kind of expected. I'm expecting the 13 to be better in every single area. Let's go and do their cameras. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go and take a photo. Okay, let's go and open the photo. Kind of the same thing actually, which is very weird. Camera 3, 2, 1. Little bit slower on the iPhone 10. Mail 3, 2, 1. Okay, hopping out of here. Let's go and get into settings. 3, 2, 1. Honestly, the 13 is faster, but the 10 is actually still doing really well. Photos 3, 2, 1. Okay, hopping out of here. App Store 3, 2, 1. And the 13 again is the faster one, but it's very insane to me how good the iPhone 10 is doing now. I guess I didn't load that top image there, which is very strange, but scrolling through, let's go and see what's going on. And 13 is definitely, I guess, the smoother one when it's scrolling through. But I still am kind of shocked about the iPhone 10, honestly. It did really, really well in those first couple of apps. Now let's go and get into Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. I'm hoping there's not any random pop-ups that happen, and you can see the iPhone 13. I mean, it did load up much faster than the iPhone 10, so I guess when you get into these bigger apps, that's when you start seeing these bigger differences. And definitely, I mean, that's kind of obvious. You're going to be seeing a much faster phone from the iPhone 13 than the iPhone 10 in that specific standpoint. Fruit Ninja, which I do not have. Let's go and get into this stack. 3, 2, 1. And you can see again, iPhone 13 is the faster one, iPhone 10 a little bit behind. Is it a groundbreaking difference? Not really, but it is one thing to keep in mind. Thank you, 321. Totally messed up on the iPhone 10. Don't know what's going on there, so we'll just go and load this up in the background, and then we'll just go and get into it after. So we'll just load this one up once this one is done, and then I'll go and swipe out of this one. Glitch on the iPhone 10 right there, Netflix 321. A little bit of a delay clicking it on the iPhone 10. I clicked them at the same time, but there was a noticeable delay on the iPhone 10. Let's go and do Facebook 321. I might be logged in here, so I am logged in here. And I'm not logged in here, which I do have an account. So make sure you guys follow me on Facebook as well. Let's go and do BOFA, which I do not have. And honestly, that kind of covers up a majority of the applications. We can try Genshin Impact 321. And I kind of think I already know how this one's going to go. But when it comes down to it, the iPhone 13 is definitely the faster one, even on those smaller apps. And it's definitely with these bigger applications, it's going to be much faster as well. But it's still insane to me how well the iPhone 10 is doing. With something like the iPhone 10, this phone is really shouldn't even be this good in terms of performance, but it's still performing very well for a 2017 phone, somewhat keeping up with a 2020 phone or 21 phone. It's pretty insane. Now, with bigger games and apps, it's not going to be as close, but if you're doing a bunch of small things, like the iPhone 10 is still doing pretty good, so that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the camera setup, as I mentioned before, the iPhone 10 and the 13 have somewhat of the same kind of lens setup, two lenses, but it's a little bit different. You have a wide and telephoto lens on the iPhone 10, but a wide and ultra wide sensor on the iPhone 13. You are getting a better camera setup every single way on the iPhone 13. 4K on the back, but you do have 4K at 60 on the iPhone 13. You have 4K at 60 on the front of the iPhone 13 as well, where you only have, I think, 1080p on the front of the iPhone 10. So I think the 10, for it being as old as it is, like I mentioned, it still is an okay camera. It's definitely not that great. But if you're going through and you're taking like random photos here and there, and you're taking, random videos, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, I think you're going to be getting a decent experience from this thing. It's definitely not going to like break any records. But I think for a phone that you're going to use here and there, I think it does a decent job. You have portrait mode, you have video mode as always, and I think for that, I think it's good. If you're trying to use this phone and you're trying to like take some crazy good photos, you could probably get it if you know how to edit your photos. But that's where things like the iPhone 13 just end up doing a much better job. With the 13, you are definitely getting a much better sensor. I mean, you are getting a phone that is just so capable in so many different ways. You have that ultra wide sensor, which is always so nice to have. You can go ahead and just zoom out a ton, which is so cool. You can go and zoom in, not as much as the iPhone 10, but it still does a really good job in terms of zooming in and out. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind as well. You have portrait mode, but you have cinematic mode on the iPhone 13, which is a really cool feature that essentially allows you to blur out the background a little bit more. It's not as great as I thought it was going to be, but it still does a good job, and I'm glad I have that feature. So when it comes down to it, as I mentioned before, I think the iPhone 13 is definitely the better camera. And that kind of sums it up in the phone standpoint as well. I think the iPhone 13 is the better phone in pretty much every single way. You are going to be getting a phone from the iPhone 13 that lasts a very long amount of time. It is definitely a better phone in every single area than the iPhone 10. The only area where the iPhone 10 is even a better phone at, even remotely, is the price tag. You're getting a much cheaper phone from something like the iPhone 10. It doesn't feel like a cheap phone and still feels like it holds up very well. But if you want a phone that's going to last the longest amount of time, the iPhone 13 is a better way to go. But the iPhone 10 is a very solid option if you want to save some money and if you don't care about having a slower phone or a phone that doesn't have as many features. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.